Hello, my friends, and welcome to a very special Christmas edition of our English practice. The holiday season is full of noise, plans, and rushing. But here, right now, you can just listen, relax, and let English flow gently into your mind. Today, before we dive into the stories, I want you to slow down, take a deep breath, and simply enjoy this moment. This is your quiet space. A small pause in the middle of winter. A moment to feel warm, calm, and present, even if the world around you is busy. In today's lesson, I'll share a few Christmas stories with you. Stories about kindness, small miracles, and the way simple moments can touch our hearts. As you listen, let the rhythm of the words guide you. Let the images come alive in your imagination. Let English feel natural, soft, and effortless. So sit comfortably. Breathe in the winter air. And let's begin our Christmas journey together. Christmas story, a winter evening at the market. Let me tell you a little Christmas story. It's about a winter evening, a small town, and one unexpected moment of kindness. Last year, a few days before Christmas, I decided to visit the Christmas market in my town. It was cold outside, one of those evenings when you can see your breath in the air, but the market was full of warm lights, music, and the smell of cinnamon and roasted nuts. As I walked through the market, I noticed families taking pictures, children laughing, and couples holding hands. Everything felt peaceful and joyful, like a scene from a Christmas movie. I stopped at a small wooden stall where an older man was selling handmade ornaments. Each ornament was different. Tiny stars, colorful bells, little wooden reindeer. There was one ornament that caught my eye, a small glass globe with a tiny snowy village inside. It was simple, but beautiful. The man smiled at me and said, "This one is special. It reminds people of home." I asked him what he meant. He told me that every year he makes one ornament that represents a memory from his childhood. This one, he said, reminded him of the village where he grew up. Quiet streets, warm lights in every window, and a feeling that everyone knew each other. He said Christmas was always peaceful there. We talked for a few minutes, and I noticed how happy he was just sharing his story. It wasn't about selling anything. It was about connection. About remembering something meaningful. About sharing a piece of himself. I bought the ornament not because I needed it, but because I felt the warmth of that moment. As I walked away, I realized something important. Christmas is not really about big gifts or perfect decorations. It's about small moments of kindness, simple conversations, and feeling connected to people, even strangers. When I got home, I placed the ornament on my tree. And every time I look at it, I remember that evening at the market. The lights, the music, the cold air, and the quiet reminder that even a short conversation can make your entire day feel brighter. So this Christmas, I hope you also experience a moment like that. A small moment of warmth, a moment of connection, a moment that stays with you long after the holidays are over. Christmas Story, Part 2. The Letter on the Bench. A few days later, on Christmas Eve, I decided to take a short walk through the same market again. The evening was quieter this time. The music was softer, the crowds smaller, and the snowflakes were falling slowly, drifting through the golden lights like tiny glowing stars. As I walked past the stalls, I noticed the wooden bench near the big Christmas tree. Someone was sitting there, a woman wrapped in a red scarf holding a cup of hot chocolate. Next to her on the bench was a small envelope. When she stood up to leave, the envelope slipped to the ground. I tried to call out to her, but she didn't hear me. The crowd carried her away, and within seconds, she disappeared into the flow of people. I picked up the envelope and looked at the front. There was no name, no address, just two words, handwritten. For someone special. I wasn't sure what to do. Should I open it? Should I try to find her? Or maybe this was meant for someone else entirely. I sat down on the bench for a moment. The air was cold, but the lights from the Christmas tree made everything feel warm. After a minute of hesitation, I decided to open the envelope. Inside was a letter, written in soft, careful handwriting. It said, "If you find this, I hope it reaches you at the right moment." Christmas can be a joyful time, but also a lonely one. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we are stronger than we think. I hope this season brings you peace, and I hope you remember that even small steps can change everything. You are not alone. You matter. And the world is better because you're in it. I read the letter twice. 3 times. Something about it felt deeply personal, even though it wasn't written specifically for me. People passed by, laughing, talking, enjoying the evening. And I sat there on the bench holding this message from a stranger, feeling unexpectedly understood. Maybe the woman wrote it for someone she knew. Maybe it was part of a tradition. Or maybe, just maybe, it was meant for whoever needed it most. I folded the letter and placed it back into the envelope. And instead of keeping it, I placed it on the bench again, exactly where I found it. Because I knew someone else would walk by tonight. Someone who might need those words even more than I did. As I walked away, I felt something beautiful. A quiet kind of Christmas magic. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a soft reminder that kindness travels from person to person. Like a candle lighting another candle. You never know how your small gesture can brighten someone's world. And that, I realized, is the true spirit of Christmas. Christmas Story, Part 3. The Ornament That Returned. The day after Christmas, the town felt different. Quieter, softer, almost sleepy. The market was still open for one final evening, so I decided to walk through it one more time before the season ended. The snow was falling in steady, gentle waves. The lights were dimmer now, not as bright as before, but somehow even more beautiful. Everything felt calm, like the world had taken a deep breath and finally relaxed. As I walked past the stalls, I suddenly noticed something familiar. At the same stall where I had met the older man, the one who sold the handmade ornaments, there was a small sign that hadn't been there before. It said, "Last day, one ornament left." I stepped closer. And there it was, sitting alone on the wooden shelf. Was the same glass ornament I had bought a few days earlier. The tiny, snowy village inside looked exactly the same. The small houses, the frozen river, the glowing windows. But how could this be? I had taken mine home. It was hanging on my tree right now. The old man noticed me staring. He smiled softly as if he already knew what I was thinking. "I made one more," he said, "but I didn't put it out until today." He paused for a moment, then added, "Some things are meant to find the right person at the right time." I didn't know what to say. It felt like more than just an ornament. It felt like the season itself was giving me something back. A moment. A message. A reminder. I asked him why he decided to make another one. He replied, "Because every year someone needs it. Sometimes it's a person who feels lonely. Sometimes it's someone who needs hope. And sometimes..." He looked at me kindly. "It's someone who's been given hope to others without realizing it." His words stayed with me. I bought the ornament, the second one, and held it carefully in my hands as I walked through the market. On the way home, I suddenly remembered the letter I had found on the bench the day before. The message inside it. The kindness of the writer. The warmth I felt reading it. And I realized something. Maybe Christmas magic isn't about something big or unbelievable. Maybe it's simply about these tiny threads connecting strangers. A letter on a bench. A conversation at a market stall. A small glass ornament waiting for the right person. When I reached home, I placed the second ornament next to the first. They looked like twins. Two little villages glowing quietly inside their tiny glass worlds. And I thought, maybe this year, I wasn't the only one who received a Christmas story. Maybe. I also became part of someone else's. Christmas Story, Part 4. The Stranger from the Bench. 2 days later, when the holiday rush had finally calmed down, I decided to take a walk through the quiet streets of town. Most of the decorations were still up. Twinkling lights on balconies, wreaths on doors, the soft glow of candles in windows. Everything felt peaceful, like the world was resting after the festive days. As I walked past the big Christmas tree in the center square, I noticed the wooden bench where I had found the letter. It was almost empty now, just a bit of snow on the seat and some footprints in the slush. And then I saw her. The woman with the red scarf. She was standing a few feet away from the bench, looking at the Christmas tree with a soft smile. Her scarf blew gently in the wind, and she held a warm drink in her hands. I hesitated for a moment. Should I talk to her? Should I ask about the letter? Would she even remember it? But something inside me pushed me forward. I walked closer and said, "Excuse me, I think I saw you here a couple of days ago." She turned, surprised but not frightened. Her eyes were calm, kind. "Oh," she said with a small laugh. "I've been around here quite a lot this week. I like the lights." I nodded, then gently asked, "Did you leave something on this bench? An envelope, maybe?" For a second, her expression froze. Like I had opened a door she wasn't sure anyone else would ever see. Then she smiled softly. "Yes," she said, "I did." She looked at the bench, then at the tree. I write a letter every Christmas, just one. I leave it somewhere in town for a stranger. I never know who will find it, and I never expect anything in return. I told her that I had found the letter and that her message had touched me deeply. She listened quietly, the smile never leaving her face. "I'm glad it reached the right person," she said. Sometimes we forget that small words can help someone through a difficult moment. I write these letters because I needed one myself. Once. We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence, watching the lights shimmer on the tree. Then she said something I will never forget. Kindness is like a whisper. You never know who will hear it, but someone always does. I felt something warm inside me, the same feeling I had when I bought the second ornament. A feeling of connection, of purpose, of Christmas magic that didn't need explanations. "Will you write another one next year?" I asked. She nodded. "Maybe, and maybe you will too." We exchanged a gentle smile, the kind you share with someone you don't know but somehow understand. She wished me a warm holiday, and then she walked away, disappearing slowly into the winter streets, like a character from a story who appears only when needed. I sat on the bench for a moment after she left. The snow fell lightly around me, and I thought about everything that had happened. The old man and his ornaments. The letter on the bench. The stranger in the red scarf. Two glass villages glowing quietly on my tree at home. It felt like all these little moments, separate, ordinary, simple, were actually connected. Not by chance, but by kindness. And maybe that is the true heart of Christmas. Christmas Story, final part. The gift at the door. New Year's Eve arrived quietly. No crowds, no noise, just the soft glow of candles in my living room and the two little ornaments shining on my tree. The house felt warm, peaceful, and full of something I couldn't quite explain. Like a gentle echo of every moment that had happened in the last few days. As the evening settled in, there was suddenly a soft knock at the door. Not loud. Not urgent. Just a gentle tap-tap as if someone didn't want to disturb the quiet of the night. I opened the door and looked outside. There was no one there. Only a small package lying on the doorstep, wrapped in simple brown paper and tied with red string. Snowflakes were beginning to settle on top of it, as if the package had arrived just seconds before. I picked it up and brought it inside. There was no name, no note, just the same handwriting I had seen before on the envelope from the bench. for someone special. My heart beat a little faster. I untied the string and opened the paper carefully. Inside was a third ornament. A tiny glass globe, just like the other two. But this one was different. Inside it wasn't a village. It wasn't a river. It wasn't a snowy street. Inside there was a tiny glass bench. Just a bench. Under a glowing Christmas tree. And on the bottom of the ornament, written in the smallest, finest handwriting, were the words, "Every story finds its way home." I felt something warm rise in my chest. A deep, quiet understanding. This wasn't just a decoration. It was a message. A message that kindness travels further than we think. That we touch people's lives without even realizing it. That small moments matter, and sometimes more than the big ones. That strangers can become part of our story, and we can become part of theirs. I placed the new ornament on the tree right next to the others. 3 small worlds glowing softly together. Each one holding a piece of this unexpected Christmas journey. As midnight approached, I sat by the window and watched the snow fall outside. Everything felt connected. The old man at the market. The letter on the bench. The woman with the red scarf. And now this final gift. And I realized something. Christmas isn't a day. It isn't even a season. It's a reminder. A reminder that light comes in small pieces. A reminder that the world is gentler than it seems. A reminder that kindness always finds its way home. And that sometimes we are exactly where we're meant to be. To receive the story that changes us. And to share a little piece of it with someone else. The clock struck midnight. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely, quietly, beautifully at peace. Great job, my friends. You've reached the end of today's practice, and I hope you feel proud of yourself. Every minute you spend speaking, listening, or repeating English helps you grow, even if it doesn't always feel like progress in the moment. Sometimes improvement is quiet. Sometimes it's slow. But it is always happening. Learning a language is not just about memorizing words. It's about building confidence, trusting your voice, and allowing yourself to make mistakes without fear. Every sentence you repeat becomes a little smoother. Every phrase becomes a little more natural. And every day you show up to practice, you create momentum, the kind of momentum that truly changes your speaking ability over time. Many people think they need perfect grammar or a perfect accent to communicate well, but that's not true. What you really need is consistency, patience, curiosity, and the courage to keep going even on the days when you're tired or unsure. And you did that today. You chose to practice. You chose to keep improving. And that says something wonderful about you. I want you to remember that learning English is a journey, not a race. There is no finish line. There is only growth. Some days you'll learn quickly, other days more slowly, and both are completely okay. Progress doesn't need to be loud to be real. Even small steps count. Especially the small steps. So take a moment now. Breathe in and acknowledge how far you've come. You're doing something meaningful for your future self, something your future self will look back on with gratitude. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Your dedication inspires me, and I'm honored to be part of your learning journey. I hope today's practice brought you not only new words and phrases, but also a sense of calm, confidence, and connection. And if you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It truly helps, and it means we can continue learning together, step by step, day by day. Keep speaking. Keep believing. And remember, your English journey is just beginning. I'll see you in the next lesson.